So 6.3 is all about paying the money back. That's what we're getting into now, is we've made the loan. That's the whole, let's get a promissory note in place. Let's do lien theory or title theory for the collateral. All of that's been nailed down. Now we're talking about repayment. And when we talk about repayment of a note, that is done with a payment called a PI payment. Go ahead and get really comfortable with this PI payment idea. The monthly payment, and they're always monthly. That's another thing. Mortgage note payments are always made monthly. When that payment is made on a monthly basis, the payment actually contains two, not just one, but two separate pieces that are being paid. In other words, and I use this expression a lot, it's being blown up, it's being split. As soon as you send that check to the lender, they're blowing it apart. And here's why they're blowing it apart. Some of that money is their money. And what I mean by their money is interest. That's their profit. They take their profit first, folks. When you send your monthly payment in, guess what comes out of that monthly payment first before anything else?
The interest.
It is.
Interest that you owe the lender for that month. Now, I want to be clear. You only owe interest for that month. We're going to talk more about that, but I want to just go ahead and say it so it can start to settle in your brain. The reason you only owe interest for that month is because you made a payment last month that covered the interest for last month. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but when that payment hits, they're going to take their interest out first, and then whatever amount is left over is going to get credited toward the principal. The principal is the amount you borrowed. Okay. So interest is the money that's being charged by the lender. That's their profit. So we could call that lender profit on a monthly basis. And the principal is the loan amount, the amount or the outstanding balance on the loan at any given time. When we make those payments, it's called a debt service payment. There's a vocabulary phrase that you need to familiarize yourself with, a debt service payment. A debt service payment is the payment made on a monthly basis to a lender that includes what two pieces, what two components?
Interest and principal.
Interest and principal, right? Or
Payment and interest.
That's principal and interest. Okay. And of the two, the interest is going to get deducted first. Now, when we talk about paying interest, interest is mostly paid, in fact, always for our case in this class, in arrears. Arrears means backwards.
Mm-hmm.
When I pay interest, I'm not paying for future interest. When I send in, and remember, the only time I pay interest is when I send my monthly payment to the bank.
Mm-hmm.
When I send my monthly payment to my mortgage lender, I'm not paying interest for the upcoming month. It's not like rent. Rent gets paid in advance. I'm paying interest for the previous month. It's backward looking. In other words, I have a mortgage payment coming up October 1st. When I make that October 1st payment, will I be paying the interest that I owe for the month of October, or will I be paying the interest that I owe for the month of September? Which is
September.
September's interest gets paid in October. October's interest will be paid in November. November's interest will be paid in December. Does everybody see how that works?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because what's happening is that interest is building up day by day by day. And then you get to the point of making a payment and you pay off all the interest. After you make a payment, how much interest do you owe outstanding on the loan? Right after you make the payment, how much interest do you owe, folks? So you need to make this connection. Zero, because you just paid it all. Every time you make a payment, you pay off every cent of interest that you owe the bank. You don't pay off every cent of principal that you owe them. but you pay off every penny of interest that you owe. That's what we mean when we say they take their part first. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so that debt service payment or PI payment, okay, is going to go in every month and cover the previous month's interest, because the interest is building up daily on the loan and paid back down to zero. And I give you, the example here. It says, for example, a mortgage payment made on February 1 covers the interest that built up. Look at this word, accrued. Let's talk about that word for just a second. Accrued interest is interest that has built up. When was the last time I made a payment on my mortgage at my home? Don't overthink this. When are they due?
The first of the month.
The first.
First of the month. Okay. So September 1st was the last payment on my note. Everybody okay with that statement?
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
What month's interest was being paid with that September 1 payment?
August.
August interest. Okay. Have I accrued or accumulated more in interest expenses, interest fees since I made that payment?
Yes.
Yes.
How many days worth of accrued interest do I owe right now?
10.
10 days.
You can always tell how much accrued interest somebody has by simply looking at the calendar. If it's the 15th of the month, they got 15 days of accrued interest. If it's the 19th of the month, they got 19 days of accrued interest. Does that make sense for everybody?
Mhm.
That's very simple because it's just accrued since the beginning of the month. This word amortization is a really fancy word for a really simple process. Anytime you're taking a big debt and making payments on it over time, you're amortizing. It's not a real estate word. Do people amortize engagement rings?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Do people amortize vehicles?
Yeah.
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 Yes. Do sometimes people amortize dishwashers?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yes, right. They go and they get them and they make payments to the appliance store. Can you still do that? They still have buy here, pay here like appliance stores anymore? Or you just got to put it on a credit card now. I don't know.
I think it's all online.
That was the big thing when
I
was,
want to finance or amortize a litter box.
you want to amortize a litter box. It must be a heck of a litter box.
Mhm.
Oh my God. I read so many good reviews though.
I don't even want to know why there are reviews on litter boxes. It's a box of dirt. Like what is the
It cleans itself.
oh, okay, well maybe
And it's like the Apple version.
my dogs have a self-cleaning litter box too. It's called the backyard, and then it rains and then it cleans itself.
You can't compare. It's
So amortize just means making payments over time. That's all it means. And usually they're equal payments. The payments are going to cover not only paying down the debt, but paying the interest that's accruing over time as well. And when we make those payments, just a reminder again, I know it's the same slide, but you're going to see it several times because I have to constantly remind when that payment goes in and it gets broken into those two pieces, which piece comes out of the payment first? Interest. So now let's just throw some numbers up here so you can apply that process. Let's say that the monthly payment is $1,000, but we owe $900 in accrued interest for the month. Is that $900 going to come out second after we apply some money toward the principal, or is that $900 come out of that payment first?
First.
Come first.
It comes out first. So how much is going to go toward the principal, folks?
$100.
$100.
$100 that's left over. Does that make sense for everybody?
Mhm.
Yes.
In other words, you can never figure out how much is going toward the principal until you first eliminate.
Shoot. Travis, I'm sorry, I muted you. I was trying to admit somebody.
I didn't want to talk anyway.
Oh God. What a
I
morning.
need you to repeat that last thing about.
I
Can
don't
you go back to the last slide and repeat it?
I don't remember what I said. I don't know.
Something about the only way you'll be able to figure out how much of the
payment is going to
You know
the
what
principal.
you know what I said was I gave the answer to the first 10 questions of the final exam, and I only do that once in a class, and I really hate y'all missed it this time.
I am not here.
You can take it up with Seth.
I am not available.
If you're gonna get some email.
So what I said was when that payment goes to the lender, when the payment hits the lender's, mailbox on a monthly basis, interest has to come out first. So if we're making a $1,000 payment, but $900 of that is interest that we owe, we're only going to end up applying $100 of that 1,000 toward the principal balance. In other words, the balance of the loan only comes down by how much, folks?
$100.
$100.
$100, because the other 900 went toward what?
The interest.
Interest.
And you're going to learn as we start to go through and do the math of these, that's exactly what it's going to look like. These numbers are ugly when it comes to the breakdown of interest versus principal. You will
Same thing for car amortizations.
right, anything that you amortize. But when you do 30-year mortgages, you'll have people making an 18, 19, 200, making a $2,000 a month house payment. And they think, man, they are doing something. I'm $2,000 a month. I'll have this thing paid off in no time. What they don't realize is it might be $150 of that that's going toward the actual loan balance. The rest is being chewed up by the interest owed on that big balance.
Is that why they say make a double payment? Because that second payment will go to all of the principal because you've already paid the interest?
That is correct. That's exactly right. If you send in an extra payment, we call those a principal only payment. And so that has think about it. If you're making a $2,000 payment, or just use the one we got on the screen here, if you're making a $1,000 payment, but $900 of it is interest, only $100 is going toward principal. If you doubled up and sent it in though, wouldn't you be paying $1,100 toward the principal? Because all of that second payment would go to principal. Folks, you
can do that.
You just made as much impact with that one extra payment as you would have made in the next 10 months on that same loan. That's how dramatic that impact can be.
Oh my gosh.
Travis, do you recommend paying extra on your principal every month? I mean, if you can do it, even if it's like $50.
Do I what?
Recommend paying extra on just your principal.
I think that's going to be a different answer for everybody. I think it really depends on what your interest rate is and what other debt you have. I mean, if you're completely debt-free otherwise, then by all means, but don't pay extra money on your home principal if you've got credit cards at a 20% interest rate. Pay the extra
Start
money
doing that
first. So, when we talk about this word amortization, which just means paying things down over time, loans can either be fully amortized or partially amortized. If amortization means paying it down over time, fully amortized means paying it down to what over time? If you're paying down is amortized, then fully amortized must be paying it down all the way to what?
Zero.
A fully amortized loan, folks, is one where when the last regular monthly payment is made, the loan balance is magically what?
Zero.
Zero. Every payment is the same all the way through. And when the last payment is made, the balance is zero. That's a fully amortized loan. But they're not all fully amortized. Some loans are what we call partially amortized. Now, remember, amortized just means paying it down. So what do you think partially amortized means? After every one of the regularly scheduled monthly payments have been made, what's true of the balance?
They're still due, still money due.
There's still some money owed. We have only paid it down partially. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yes.
Now, here's what you need to understand about that. If we haven't paid it all the way down to zero, we're going to have to pay it down at some point, right? I'm going to skip ahead a couple slides here. How many of you have ever heard of a balloon payment?
Yeah.
A balloon payment is how you handle that outstanding balance at the end of a loan if the loan is partially amortized. And we call it a balloon payment because it's explosively big. What if we had a partially amortized loan that after we made the last payment still had $150,000 balance? How long would we have to pay that $150,000?
Immediately.
Immediately.
Yeah, then.
In how many payments?
One.
One.
One. So you think, so here's what you should think of with a partially amortized loan. You got a lot of regular monthly payments, which are all the same, but then one big whopper at the end. Does that make sense for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Fully amortized loan, you got a bunch of payments that are all exactly the what?
Same.
Same. I'm going to show you what I just said with a visual because I think the visual is going to help. Here's what a fully amortized loan looks like over time. All of those are payments. And they're all exactly the what?
Same.
Same.
The same. Here's what a partially amortized loan looks like over time. Oops. You got a bunch of regularly scheduled payments, and then you got what at the end?
One large one.
One big one.
The balloon payment.
Balloon payment.
Now, look at the visual there, and I know I'm a great artist. I know that. You don't have to tell me. Look at the visual there. Which one has the lower monthly payments? The fully amortized or the partially amortized?
Partially amortized.
Partially amortized. That's the advantage of a partially amortized. Is there a disadvantage of the partially amortized?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Payment.
The what?
At the end.
The end payment.
The balloon payment at the end. Now, here's what you need to understand. It doesn't mean one of these is good and one's bad. It simply means it depends on what's more important to the borrower. A borrower who needs to minimize their monthly expenses should probably consider what kind of a loan?
Partial.
Partial
Partially
amortized.
amortized. A borrower who wants to make sure they get it paid off should probably do a what?
Fully
Fully
amortized.
Fully amortized. Does everybody see the difference?
Yes.
Okay, that's the difference between the two. Okay, most loans that we're going to deal with.
So,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Is it better to maybe get a partially amortized loan and then sell it before you get to that big balloon payment?
Well, that might be why somebody does that. If you have somebody who knows they're only going to own the property for a limited amount of time and they don't want to spend as much, they want to limit their expenses as much as they possibly can, they might do the partially amortized loan.
Military.
It gives them a lower loan payment in the meantime, and they know they're going to sell long before they get to that balloon payment. Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. Also, let me tell you where that's really popular. Commercial real estate. So why would that kind of a loan be popular in commercial real estate? Number one, why do most owners own commercial real estate? Is it because they really like shopping centers or because they want to make money off the thing?
Make
Make
money.
money off.
And how do they make money off of it? They collect rent, don't they?
Mhm.
But they don't get to keep all of that money because don't they have to pay their expenses like their mortgage payment out of the rent they collect?
Yep.
Yes.
But if you own that shopping center to make money, wouldn't it be nice if you could get the smallest monthly payment possible so that you got to keep more of the rent as your profit every month?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
And so you'll see a lot of commercial real estate owners that will do partially amortized so that they can keep more of the profit as they go along. And by the way, they're never going to make that balloon payment.
I was just about to say that. I was like, well, if you think about it, if the monthly payments are cheaper to do partially amortized, why would they not just refinance at the end of that?
And that's exactly what they're going to do. When they get to the end of this, they're just going to take out a new loan that coincidentally is for the same amount as their balloon payment. They're going to take out a new loan and pay off the balloon payment with the new loan. And guess what kind of loan that new one's going to be probably too?
Balloon.
Partially, yeah.
Another partially amortized.
Yeah.
So they can get the lowest possible monthly payments and they just string them together. because their goal is not to pay the property off. Their goal is to make money on an ongoing basis. Very different goal. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. Most of the loans, the most common loans we deal with are what we call the fixed rate level payment, which simply means that the interest rate does not change. Interest rate is going to stay the same. It's going to stay locked in, and it's going to stay for the full life of the loan. The nice thing about that is the borrower starts to build equity right away. Equity is the value that the borrower has in the property. If they were to sell it, what would be left over? What would they walk away from? And you start to build equity right away. The most common fixed rate level payment is the fully amortized, which means, tie that all together, the interest rate is fixed, the payments are fixed, and it's fully amortized, meaning every single payment will be the same amount. And when you make the last payment, the balance is what?
Zero.
That is by far the most common loan that we see in the marketplace. We already talked about the balloon payment. Another very unique type of loan is something called a term loan or interest-only loan. So let me draw my little diagram for you here. Here is the fully amortized. Here is the partial, so fully amortized. Here is the partially amortized. Here is the term loan. Because so this one's partial. This one's term or interest only. What do you notice about the monthly payments on that interest only loan when you compare them?
Smaller.
It's a
Smallest possible monthly payment, because you're only paying what?
interest.
Interest. What's the loan balance doing on a month-by-month basis?
It's growing as a start.
Staying the same.
Staying the same. If you borrowed $250,000, you owe $250,000 next month, and $250,000 the next month, and $250,000 the next month. You're
Okay.
never touching the loan balance. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yes.
Is this loan going to have a balloon payment?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And we know exactly how much that balloon payment's going to be. How much is it going to be?
The full
The
amount.
loan amount.
The full amount of the loan. So this has the lowest monthly payments, but the biggest balloon payment. Does that make sense for everybody? Whereas the fully amortized has the highest monthly payments, but no balloon payment. And the partially amortized has medium monthly payments, but a balloon payment. So it's all about what you value more. Would somebody who owns the shopping center maybe consider doing an interest only, even rather than a partially amortized?
Yes.
Because if you had a buyer come to you and say, you know, I'm in medical school and I'm going to be a cardiac surgeon, but I'm going to start my residency. I'm doing my residency for the next couple of years, and I'm going to be on a flat $80,000 a year. But I want to go ahead and buy a house. What kind of loan sounds real good for that person? If they're only going to make $80,000 a year for the next 2 years while they're doing their residency, but they're going to be a cardiac surgeon. What do cardiac surgeons make?
A lot of money.
A lot of money. What kind of loan is a really good option for that person who's going to be making far less for the next couple of years than they will be down the road?
A term.
A term loan. Let them do an interest-only loan. Yeah, they won't be touching the balance, but in the meantime, they'll own the property. Here's what you need to understand. That's still a positive outcome, folks. I want you to think about it this way. Think of somebody who bought a house 2 years ago with a term loan. They borrowed $200,000. Now, how much do they still owe?
$200,000.
$200,000. But what has the value of the real estate done during that time?
Right now it's
Yeah.
It's
to the space.
skyrocketed, right? So was it a good idea for them to own the real estate even though they were never paying the loan balance down?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, very much so.
Because when they sell, they'll be able to pay it off and have some left over.
And have money left over, right? Because they can still build equity even though they're not paying the loan balance down. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yes.
I'm
I have a
sorry,
quick
I have one
question.
more question.
Go ahead.
Why does, and I'm sorry, I have so many questions with this,
No.
but why does anyone get a regular amortized loan? Because who's buying the house and keeping it for 30 years anymore?
Well, that's a reasonable question, I think, for, the way we've changed as a society. I think that's, a reasonable question. I think probably you'll start to see a lot more people consider partially amortized loans and or term loans, because basically what they'll be looking at is, how can I minimize my expenses? And I'm going to pay it off when I sell it. When I sell it down the road and it's worth more money, I'll pay it off then. It's not a crazy thought process, William, at all.
I don't want to create a gap in the material that we're doing. So just whenever we're moving on, I have a question about one of the other ones.
We're moving on.
Okay. So is level payment the same thing as fully amortized?
Level payment means that the payments never change. So generally level payment is more tied to fixed rate than it is fully amortized.
Is fully amortized a repayment type?
Fully amortized refers to a loan where all the monthly payments are the same and there is no balloon payment at the end.
Okay.
It's going to be very hard for your brain to hierarchy these. It doesn't, because there's too many moving pieces. I know what you're trying to do. I know why you're asking. So it'll be very hard to do that. Okay. Taj said, can we have a conventional loan with a term repayment plan? Yes, absolutely. Because a conventional, in fact, every term loan would be a conventional loan, because I can't think of a single government-backed loan that is a term loan. And remember, the definition of conventional is not government-backed. So every term loan or interest-only loan would most likely be a conventional loan. Yeah, for sure. Okay. The adjustable rate mortgage, which would not be a level payment loan. Okay. The adjustable rate mortgage would be a loan where the rate itself can change. The rate can adjust. And which way, out of curiosity, do you think the rate most likely is going to adjust? Up, right? Up. If the rate changes, what also changes with it?
The monthly payment.
The monthly payment, and sometimes dramatically so. So a couple of things to understand about adjustable rate mortgages that they could easily ask you on the test. Number one, they change at regular intervals. It's not like every month the payment changes. You'll know what the regular intervals are. The initial rate, the first rate, actually has a name, and it should tell you everything you need to know about adjustable rate mortgages and how they're structured. Guess what the name is of the first interest rate you get on an adjustable rate loan? It's the teaser rate. It's the teaser rate. It's the one meant to get you in the door. It's the one meant to attract you. Oh, you can get a 1% interest rate. Sure, for a while. You're not going to be able to get a 1% fixed interest rate, though. What's going to happen with that interest rate over time, by its very definition? If they're giving you one that's abnormally low to get you, to attract you to take out the loan, which way is the rate very likely to adjust as we move forward?
Upward.
Up. It has to. It has to. Okay. Because they have to account for, they gave you a break in the beginning. On the test, they may ask you, how do you know how much the rate's going to adjust? It's always going to be, and you would look in the note. You would always look in the note. Remember, everything about repayment is always found in the note. to know how much a rate's going to change, you would look in the note and you would see what the note says the rate is tied to. One example is your note may say that your interest rate is tied to the prime interest rate. So I looked at a note yesterday for somebody, and they said, well, how do I know what my new interest rate is going to be? And I said, okay, well, your note says that your rate is going to be prime plus 3%. That's what the note said. At every adjustment, the interest rate was going to be prime plus 3%. And he said, well, I don't know what prime is. And I said, well, you can, because you can go look it up. Prime, and I'll share this with you here in just a second. I'm just going to do a Google search. All right, I'm going to change my share so you can see this and understand, because I think sometimes seeing it like this helps. I just did a Google search for the prime interest rate for today. Look at this is today's prime interest rate. Everybody see that number?
Yep.
So if that adjustable rate note says that at your adjustment cycle, your rate is going to be prime plus 3%. What's their new interest rate?
Wow, double.
6.25.
Oh, wow.
Their new interest rate just became 6.25% when they hit that adjustment.
Well,
Does that make
And
sense?
that's why everyone was losing their houses in 2008.
Well, that has a lot to do with it, those adjustable rate loans, because that can, you know, and I said, I looked at the note, I said, I'm guessing that's a big change. And she said, yeah. And I looked back, the teaser rate was 2.5%. So it was going from 2.5% to 6.25% at the adjustment.
Oh, wow.
That's a tremendous change, right? But the note is always going to tell you. So can somebody basically anticipate what their rate is going to change to by simply Googling? Go look at your note, see what the note says your new rate is going to be, whatever, and then go look up that rate for the day and add whatever we call that, you know. There's always going to be that plus whatever, prime plus 3%, prime plus 0.5%, whatever it is. There's always going to be that little formula sort of in the note for it. When you see an adjustable rate loan, the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year arms, what those refer to is how often the rates can change, how often the rates can adjust. If somebody has a 3 year arm, how long do they get to keep the teaser rate, folks?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years. So the one I was looking at yesterday was a 5 year arm. She's had that rate for 4.5 years now. That's why she's starting to get nervous, because she's coming up on that adjust. She knows that first adjustment's coming up, and it's going to adjust to 6.25%. Now, if she were to keep that loan, guess how long she would be at 6.25%?
5 more years.
5 more years, right? So if you have a 3 year arm, the rate adjusts one time every 3 years. If you have a 2 year arm, the rate adjusts one time every 2 years. Everybody okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not like these rates fluctuate on a monthly basis. They're locked in for a certain amount of time. There are often caps associated with the adjustments on adjustable rate loans. They can cap, for example, the interest rate. The interest rate cannot be more than this amount. This is the most the interest rate can be. And a lot of times there'll be two different kinds of caps. There may be a cap from, you know, that says you cannot go up more than 5% at any one adjustment. Or there might be a cap that says you can't, the maximum the loan could ever be is at 10%. So they might have lifetime caps. They might have the individual adjustment caps. Both of those are possible. They could have payment caps. Payment caps sound like a good thing. They're not good. That's a really bad idea in an adjustable rate loan. Interest caps are a great idea in an adjustable rate loan. Let me just throw something out there for y'all. What if the interest rate goes up so high on my adjustable rate loan that I owe $3,000 this month in interest, but my payment is capped at $2,000?
Right, your loan's just getting bigger and bigger every month.
My loan balance is getting bigger and bigger every month. That's called negative amortization because I'm not actually covering the interest. So you're making payments and the loan balance is actually going which way?
Up.
God.
Which means the following month, not only are you paying interest on what you borrowed, but you're paying interest on the interest that accumulated from the month.
Can't even win for losing.
Yeah. So the payment caps are definitely not a good idea on adjustable rate loans. When we have somebody who has more than one loan in place, we're going to refer to one of those loans as the senior note. Senior just means old, the oldest one. And every other loan they have as a junior note. So if somebody has 3 mortgages, how many of them are the senior note?
One.
One, the oldest one. The first, we also refer to that as the first mortgage. And then everything else will be junior to that. Remember with that lien priority, don't forget when you talk about the priority of liens, when a property is sold, you've got the cost of the sale first, you know, which would be like the foreclosure cost if there were any. And then you've got taxes like property taxes and special assessments. And then you get to mortgages. But don't forget, if there's multiple mortgages, we need like a, you know, A, B, C order here. Well, the order is going to be the senior note, the oldest one gets paid first, and then the junior ones get paid after that. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yep.
Okay. So that's priority. So now we want to get to the situation of actually calculating interest, doing the math of basic interest calculations. And again, this slide's in here like, I think 5 times. It's so important to remember that as we start doing this math, every time a monthly payment is made, the interest portion is coming out of that payment first before anything gets credited toward the principal. If there's only $50 left after the interest gets paid, well, then, oh, well, that's all that gets credited toward the principal is $50. Okay. So, because the interest is always going to get deducted first. When that monthly payment is set, it is set using something called a loan factor or an amortization factor. A loan factor or amortization factor is simply a number that tells you what the monthly payment is going to be. Now, you have in Learn, Test, Pass, and I'll show you what it looks like here in just a second. In fact, I'll fast forward and show you. You have a chart that looks like this in Learn, Test, Pass called the loan factor or amortization factor. Any of you looked at it and seen that? I know Seth will probably share it in the chat with you. Have any of you looked ahead and seen this thing in Learn, Test, Pass?
Yeah, I got it.
If you've already looked ahead at it, that's good because you got a jump start on memorizing it. I think, you know, one of the things that's probably the worst about the class is having to memorize this chart so that you can use it on the test. You know, that's why we give it to you early in the class so that you can memorize the loan factors, because you're going to need to know these so that you can use them to help calculate these payments. And like Seth says, you know, flashcards are really helpful with that. Taj is looking at me crazy.
Like, please tell me he's not serious.
I'm waiting on it. I'm waiting on it.
You don't have to memorize the chart.
And you weren't smiling either.
No, I wasn't smiling. You don't have to memorize the chart. They will give you the chart on the test. So let's talk about what a loan factor chart is. Now that you can stop panicking and you're going to have it, right? You're going to have it available. The chart tells you a monthly payment for a certain loan. It's based on, I don't know if that, I'll go to the next slide for a second and I'll back up. It's based on two things about the loan. They'll tell you the interest rate of the loan, and they'll tell you the length of time that the person has borrowed the money for. All you're doing at that point, look at what I've done here. This is a 4.5% interest rate loan for how many years that I've highlighted right here?
15.
15. And what you're looking for is where they cross each other. That's the number that we're gonna, of all those numbers on the chart for that loan, we only care about how many numbers on that chart.
That one, 7.6.
That one, 7.65. Does everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So now let's talk about what that number represents. The number that you find on the chart represents the monthly payment on that loan. If the borrower borrowed exactly, no more, no less, $1,000. So now I'm gonna go back to this slide. We're gonna talk about it for a second. If somebody borrowed $1,000 and took 15 years to pay it back at 4.5% interest, how much would they have to pay every month, folks?
$7.65.
$7.65. As soon as that clicks in your brain, the chart will make so much sense. All right, so talk to me before we go any further. Talk to me if you don't understand what we've looked at the chart so far. Because what we're saying when we look at this right here is if Taj borrows $1,000 and she's going to take 15 years to pay it back. First of all, she's a deadbeat if she takes 15 years to pay back $1,000, but that's beside the point. If she's going to borrow $1,000 and take 15 years to pay it back at 4.5% interest, she's going to pay $7.65 a month. And that includes the interest. That's principal and interest. That's fully amortized principal and interest. Does that make sense for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
So if she makes payments 12 months a year for 15 years of $7.65, when she makes the last payment, how much does she owe on that loan?
Zero.
Zero. Everybody with me on that so far?
Mhm.
Okay. So then look at this one. What's the monthly principal and interest payment for a $1,000 loan at 20 years at 5% interest? I want you to take a second. Just make sure you can find it in the chart. I want to know the monthly payment for a $1,000 loan, 20 years, 5% interest.
$660.
Mhm.
That look right for everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, really, because all you're doing is looking like you're going here and here. And that's where they intersect, right?
Yes.
So that monthly payment is $6.60. And how long would they be making that payment?
20 years.
20 years.
20 years. So if you wanted to do the math, you could say 20 times 12, that's 240 payments of $6.60 to pay back how much money?
$1,000.
$1,000. Everybody good so far?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, I do have a question. How do we do that? How do we use the chart if we, real numbers like 700,000 or 500,000 for a house?
I really should think about maybe like including that in the presentation, William. Like, how would you deal with the numbers were? I should think about that. So, what number did we just say it was for $1,000?
660.
660, right? Now, I'm going to tell you, this is where the math's going to get real hard here. Here comes the difficult part. What if we borrowed $2,000? Couldn't we just do 660 times what?
Two.
What would the monthly payment be?
320.
20? Here's all we did, folks. If we borrowed $2,000, watch this trick. Watch this trick. Find the comma at the thousands place. Replace it with a decimal. 2,000 becomes 2.000. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the number you multiply by to get that payment. So look at the next one. 6.60. If we borrowed 5,000, what will we multiply by?
5.0.
5.00.
5.000, right? So what's the payment?
33,000. 33,000.
Not 33,000. Nope.
3,300.
Oh, 3,300, yes.
Not 3,300 either.
$33.
Y'all better learn to read.
$33.
Y'all better learn to read.
$33.
$33.
$33. Yeah.
Y'all better start paying attention to those damn decimals. I'm telling you.
Yes.
You can't just throw numbers in the calculator and not pay attention to decimals. They matter.
Sure.
Matter. How about 12,000? Well, the loan factor stays the same, right? It's still 660 times, turn that comma into a decimal, and you times 12.000, right?
$72.
79.20.
920.
79.20.
So, never mind. I see what I did wrong.
You just type probably $6. I'm guessing instead of 660.
I forgot the 60.
Yeah, $6. So now this was William's question way back when, and I bet William can answer it now for himself. How are we going to calculate that payment if they're borrowing $187,000? It's still going to be the same loan factor of $6.60 times what?
187.000.
What's the monthly payment?
1,234.20.
34.20.
How many of you now think you could calculate any monthly payment on any loan at all as long as you got your calculator and that chart?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
can't believe it's that easy. Looks easy, but it's not.
I gotta be honest, man. I really love this class. You just make this stuff so easy. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
I need to do that last class I took.
That's all this chart is, and that's all this chart does.
I hated this. I hated this chart.
But it's not hard, right?
No,
It's not
not when you
hard.
do it.
So look at this question right here. It says Sam is purchasing a home for $450,000 and obtaining, because this is a test question right here. Okay. Sam is purchasing a home for $450,000 and obtaining an 80% loan to value loan in order to accomplish the purchase. He has been offered a 30-year note issued at 6.25% interest. What will his monthly PI payment be? Well, the first thing I think we need to do, can we all agree that we need to find the loan factor in the chart before we go any further?
Yep.
Yes.
So I'm 6.25, that's 6 1/4. And I'm going all the way across here. And then I'm coming all the way down from 30 years here. Does everybody agree that we're at 616 there?
I have a question about that.
Okay.
6-1.
Why would we take the entire home purchase when we're only getting a loan for 80% of the LTV?
We haven't done anything with the amount yet. The amount doesn't matter when we're looking it up in the chart. I'm not sure what you're asking me. Why are you?
I'm stumped. So my thought would have been to take the $450,000 times 80% of the loan to value ratio.
Yeah.
And then get that number that we're financing and then do the chart.
Oh, so what you're saying is you like to put your left shoe on before your right shoe, and I like to put my right shoe on before my left shoe. But you're
And the reason why I'm thinking that, because say for instance, the 20%, the other 20% that was not finance, we could just pay for that from cash. So we do not have to.
and again, how's that going to change the interest rate or the term of the loan?
It would change it because we're only financing 80%.
It changes the amount of the loan, but we're not talking about the amount of the loan yet. Here's what I'm trying to tell you. It doesn't matter what order you do it in. At some point, you're going to have to look up the number on the chart. And Taj, if you want to do your part first, no problem. But what I'm telling you is it doesn't matter what order you do it in, because the interest rate, guess what the interest rate is going to be? Whether you borrow 10%, 90%, 50%, guess what the interest rate is right here?
660.
6.25%.
6.25. Guess how many
Oh.
years you're borrowing the money for?
30.
30. Does it matter if it's a 50% loan to value, a 40% loan to value, a 100% loan to value?
No.
See what I'm saying now?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So
okay.
we can do the part you're doing first, or we can do the part I'm doing first. Either way, we got to do both pieces. Okay. So what I'm saying is I just like to get the chart out of the way, because then I know the only number, because to me, this is like, I get freaked out. It's a lot, right? You know, so I want to get rid of the chart, because now, can I get rid of the chart?
Yeah.
The only number that matters from the chart is what number?
616.
$6.16.
Does that make sense for everybody?
That's your loan factor.
That's my loan factor. Now we do need to do the part that Taj wants to focus on, because the amount of the loan is going to matter for what number we multiply times.
Monthly payments, yes.
Right? Okay. So the loan amount here is going to be $450,000 times 80%. Does everybody understand where that comes from? Okay. So what do we end up with for a loan amount?
360. 360,000.
$360,000. Everybody okay with where that came from?
Yeah.
Okay. And what's our loan factor? $6.16.
16.
So when we calculate the payment, all we got to do is take our loan factor of $6.16 times, and I'm going to change colors here so you can see the difference. I'm always going to go to the comma in the thousands place and simply change it from a comma into a decimal. So what number am I multiplying by here?
360.
360.000. And that gives me what?
221760.
221760. Does everybody see where that came from?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna go back and just put the chart on the screen for just a second. And I'm gonna add to this question because I want you to do one completely by yourself. So you can still use the 5% interest here at 20 years. That's fine. Okay. But let's say we're doing a $545,600 purchase at 90% LTV. So a $545,600 purchase at 90% loan to value for 20 years at 5% interest, and I want to know the payment. That's about as complex as it can possibly be. So if we look at the chart, 5%, 20 years, how many of you came up with 660 as your loan factor? Everybody good on that?
Yes.
Yes.
So we got a factor of $6.60. All right, if I look at my loan amount, 545,600 times 90% loan to value, I came up with a loan amount of 491,040. Everybody all right with that?
Yes.
And this is where my little trick of just changing the comma into a decimal is so helpful, because isn't it real easy just to go 6.60 times 491.040?
Yes.
Yes.
And when you do that, what you come up with for your payment? I came up with 3240 and 86 or 87 cents. Does that sound about right for y'all?
What they said.
Depending on your rounding, you might have got 86 or 87 cents. Either one of them is great. Either one of them is great. Now, if you did not come up with that number, we need to figure out where you went wrong. Now, if you just multiply times 491, you're going to get a different number. You can't just multiply times 491. You can't ignore everything after that decimal. That's why you just need to change the comma to a decimal. That it might seem silly when it's 187,000 to say I'm multiplying times 187.000. But if you'll stick to that, when they give you an odd number, you'll still get the right answer. How do we feel about using the chart now?
Better, yes.
Good.
Good?
Mm-hmm.
Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. That's the amortization chart or loan factor chart.
Travis, before you move on, I'm sorry. Can you go back to that slide? I understand the math, but I'm doing something wrong and I'm not getting these same numbers.
What number, what, so talk to me. What number are you not
For
getting?
the 491, I have no idea where that's coming from.
Okay, what'd you calculate for your loan balance, for your borrowed amount?
All right, let's start from the beginning. We're taking the 6.60 times the 90%, correct?
No.
Okay, that's where I'm screwing up. Okay.
90% is the amount of the purchase you're borrowing. 660 is the payment on the loan. You need to take the 90% of the purchase price to figure out how much is being borrowed. So you need to say 545,600 times 90%.
Okay, because I did something and it came up with the same final answer. Okay,
Yeah,
that's where I'm.
No,
All right.
you calculate your loan balance. So you need to think about the process, not just throwing numbers in the calculator, right? So you've got to come up with the amount borrowed. You're talking about a payment on a loan. If I ask you how much did they borrow, could you tell me that number? Because if you can't tell me that number, that's a problem.
Okay.
And that's what we need to fix. So we need to figure out how we're going to calculate how much is borrowed. And the way we calculate how much is borrowed is we take the purchase price, which in this case is 545,600, and we multiply times the loan to value ratio, which is the percentage that we're borrowing. And that's where that loan amount came from. That's where the $491,040 comes from. So the person is borrowing $491,000.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm with you now. And then times the percentage, the term.
And then, and then change the comma to a decimal times $6.60.
Okay, I just got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Can you do one more, Travis, please?
Can you pay me $100?
Sure.
Okay.
Cash App, is that fine?
Yeah, oh, sure. Sure. Okay. All right, let me get this erased. I'll do one more real quick. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Let's change our, oops, let me do that. Let's change our numbers up a little bit here. Okay. We'll go back. Where were we at? Give me the biggest one here. See it. All right. Let's say we're going to do a 30-year loan at 4% interest. Okay. 30-year loan at 4% interest. And let's say this is a $247,000 purchase at 75% loan to value. And I want to know the monthly payment. So a $247,000 purchase sales price at 75% loan to value, and the loan is issued for 30 years at a 4% annual interest rate. Okay, I've got to go get my calculator back. I hate using my phone as a calculator.
Yes, okay. Cool.
I got 885 and 50 cents. What do y'all think about that?
Yep.
Good.
Awesome.
You can do that. You can do anything you need to do with a loan factor chart. So basically, as we progress through this math, anytime you need a payment amount and they don't give it to you, sometimes they'll give you the payment amount. Sometimes they'll say the monthly payment is this, but anytime they don't give you the payment, are you going to freak out, or you can be like, oh, hell, that's what the chart's for?
What the chart is for him.
That's what the chart's for. That's why we do it first, because that's the chart gives you the payment. By the way, we don't do this anymore because now we all have smartphones in our pockets and you can pull up a mortgage calculator. But when I got into the business, we used to all carry this around in our pocket. We used to all have one of these folded up in our pocket, because if you talk to your buyer and they told you, oh, well, the bank gave me a 5% interest rate and I'm gonna borrow the money for 30 years, could you quickly know how much their payment was going to be based on the sales price of the house you were showing them by simply referencing the chart, right? That's what it's for. Are we all okay with moving on? Good. By the way, that's probably one of the most missed math questions on the entire test right there, and you just whipped it. You already got it. Okay. So we need to talk about something called a budget payment. Up to this point, we've only talked about the PI payment. We have not talked about the real payment in full, which is the PITI payment, which on the test they will refer to potentially as a budget payment. The P and the I stay the same, principal and interest, but it is very common for lenders to want us to escrow in additional expenses, property taxes, insurance. If you think about it, the property taxes are going to be billed annually, right?
Yep.
When do property tax bills come out? Remind me of that. We've talked about that before. When is that property tax bill going to come out?
January 1st.
September.
That's when it becomes
September.
When does the bill come out?
September.
Oh, September 1st.
September, right? And when's it late?
January
January
1st.
6th
January 6th.
of the following year.
Next year.
January 6th of the next year. That's right. So when are most people paying these?
September, January 1st.
On January 1st,
like,
2nd.
Right. Sometime late in the year, early in the next year, right? Right around the holidays. How many of your friends do you know that have an extra $4,000 or $5,000 laying around to pay their property taxes come December the 28th?
No.
Ain't me.
Got all that.
Lenders get very worried that you might not pay the property taxes. So I call this payment the your lender doesn't trust you to pay your own taxes payment. And so they make you pay it monthly to them. Who's actually going to pay the tax bill? If you're making a PITI payment monthly to your lender, who's actually going to pay the tax bill to the county?
Your lender.
The lender.
Your lender is. Who's actually going to pay the insurance bill to your insurance company?
The lender.
The lender is. They're taking your annual insurance bill and your annual tax bill and breaking it down into a monthly payment, and they're simply adding it on to your regular loan payment. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yep.
And the reason we call it a budget payment is it makes it much easier for people to budget their expenses by spreading them out on a monthly basis rather than having, oh, well, here's my monthly house payment, but I also have this big annual tax bill, and then I also have this separate insurance payment. People struggle with that. And so the PITI payment allows them to make the same consistent payment 12 months a year. That's why it's the most common one. Our challenge is going to be, and remember, we've already done this before. We've looked at the PI payment and then busted it up into principal and interest. Our challenge now is going to be to take a PITI payment and bust it into not two pieces, but what?
Four.
Four pieces, right? We're going to have principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. The best way to handle this, in my opinion, when you start trying to bust up this payment, is to do it in reverse. If they say principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, I'm going to do it insurance, taxes, interest, and principal, because I know what one of those is coming out absolutely last every single time.
The principal.
The principal. The principal's always coming out last every single time. Okay. So look at this example right here. This is Carson. I must have been watching Downton Abbey when I wrote this question. Carson is obtaining a $280,000. And yes, I watched Downton Abbey. Don't judge me. Don't judge me.
I've watched the series, all of them, about 4 times.
I know. This is like my 3rd time through it too.
And the movie's coming out soon. Yeah,
I know they're having a new movie.
So excited.
Exactly. Maggie Smith's still in it, and she's 174 years old, and she's still going to be in it. It's awesome. Awesome. Carson is obtaining a $280,000 mortgage note at 5.25% annual interest for 15 years. The home has annual property taxes due of $2,960 and an annual homeowner's insurance bill of $960. Based on this information, what will be the total PITI payment? So remember, we just did something that helped us come up with a payment, but the payment that the chart helps us come up with is only the PI portion of that payment. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yes.
So what we're going to have to do now is combine the chart, which gives us the PI portion, with the rest of this, the taxes and insurance portion. So let's start to do that. Let's start to.
This is such a eye opener for me, because I thought you could only use the chart for PI payment.
Right.
Which you can, but
then you can also add that into the taxes and insurance portion to get the real monthly payment that somebody's going to be making. So let's work on the PI portion from the chart first. Let's go ahead and get the chart out of the way. It says that the loan is going to be at 5.25% interest for 15 years. So 5.25 is right here, right? And then 15 years is right there. So that looks like that one right there to me, which is $8.04. Does everybody see where I'm getting the 804 from?
Yep.
yes.
Okay, by simply lining those two up on the chart. So my loan factor is 804. So that's step one. I got my loan factor. Now, let's turn that into a payment. Okay. Let's turn that into a payment. Did they tell us how much we're borrowing? They just gave it to us, didn't we? They said we're borrowing what?
280,000.
$280,000. So to calculate my payment, it's always going to be my loan factor of 804 times 280, right? 0.000. Everybody okay with that?
Uh-huh.
And that's a monthly PI payment of $2,251.20. Are we all feeling good with where that number comes from now that you know how to use the chart?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
But they want to know the PI-TI payment. So now we need to talk about tacking on taxes and insurance. Well, it doesn't matter really if we do taxes or insurance first. We can do them in whatever order we want. I think on the slide here, I have insurance first. So they tell us the annual insurance bill is $960, but that's annual. We need to break it down to monthly. So divide by what?
12.
12. And that gives us $80 a month in insurance. Guess what we're going to end up doing with that $80 a month, folks?
Adding it to that.
Aren't we just going to add it to the other monthly payment we've got?
Adding.
Right? And the taxes is going to be the same thing. They told us that the annual tax bill is $29.60. Divide that by 12, that's $246.67 a month, which is also going to get added in up here, right? And so now we've got all the pieces and we're ready to assemble that payment. The payment we came up with from the chart, $2,251.20 plus $80 a month in insurance, plus $246.67 in property taxes. Our monthly PITI budget payment is $2,577.87. How we feel?
Good. Makes sense.
We're about to find out how we feel. Oops, your turn. Take about 3 minutes. Have fun.
It's the school zip code for the card 27609.
I'm sorry.
It's the business card zip 27609.
No, my home 27511. I got 26.71 and about 16 or 17 cents. Does that sound somewhat familiar for everybody?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, because I came up with a loan factor of $4.92 from the chart. Everybody get that step? Did you get $4.92? Okay.
Yes.
They gave us the loan amount. So did you get $2,091 for your PI payment?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there anybody who did not get to $2,091 for the PI portion of the payment? Are we all good with that? Great. Okay. And then for monthly property taxes, I simply took the 5642 and divided by 12. And that gave me $470.17 for the taxes. And for the monthly insurance, I took the 1320 and also divided it by 12. And once I had all the pieces, what's the math look like over here, folks? Just do what?
Add them all together.
Just add them all together. 2091 plus the 470.17 plus the 110. That equals a total PITI payment of 26.71 and about 16 or 17 cents.
Mhm.
That is how you fully calculate a monthly payment. How do we all feel there? Pretty good now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you'll bear with me, I got one more thing I want to talk to you before we go to lunch, and it's very simple. Very simple. One more thing, but it'll knock out. It'll be a good math topic to knock out before we hit lunch. Interest paid over the life of the loan. You're going to see test questions about how much interest is paid over the full life of these loans. That's going to be a pretty common test question that you'll see. And people tend to make this so much harder than it is. Here's the thing you got to remember, folks. If you know the monthly payment, and either they're going to give it to you, or aren't you going to have your handy dandy chart around that you could come up with the monthly payment if they didn't give it to you? Right?
Yes.
If you know the monthly payment, that monthly payment already includes interest in it. If you know how many times a year we pay that payment, and how many times a year is that?
12.
12. And then they tell you how many years they're paying it back. Can't we pretty easily calculate how much somebody is going to pay back over their loan in total? I mean, look at this one. How much is the total principal and interest paid over the life of a 30-year mortgage loan issued at 5% interest with monthly PI payments of $1,074? Well, if we're paying $1,074 a month, how many months are there in the year, folks?
12.
Oh,
So that's times 12. Everybody good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And how many years did they say they borrowed the money for?
30.
30.
So times 30 years. If we do that, on that loan, we have paid back a grand total of $386,640. If we make every payment as scheduled on time, no more, no less, we're going to pay back $386,640. Talk to me if you don't see where that number comes from. Because that's that's a pretty straightforward number, isn't it?
Yep.
Just monthly payment times 12 months a year times how, if it's 15 years, you would have just done 1,074 times 12 times what?
15.
15. If it was a 20-year loan, you would have did 1,074 times 12 times 20. So it's always times 12 months a year and times whatever number of years they give you. That's the total payback for that loan.
Principal and interest.
Principal and interest.
Because that payment includes both of them.
Because it includes both. The question they're more likely to ask you on the test, though, is this question right here. How much is the interest paid over the life of a 30-year loan? Folks, that's no harder than what we just did. Because if we can calculate the total paid over the life of the loan, we can just subtract the amount that was borrowed. Does it make sense that if we subtract the amount borrowed, that the difference is the interest?
Yeah.
yes.
Isn't it amazing that it could actually be that straightforward and that easy to figure out how much interest somebody pays over one of these 30-year loans? But it is that easy, that straightforward. So that same loan, there's our 1,074 a month times 12 months a year times 30 years. So is everybody still good on how we came up with the 386,640? Are we all still good on that number? Everybody all right with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Good. Now, of that 386,640, 200,000 of it was borrowed money. They told us that. We can just subtract that out. We can take that $200,000 and subtract it out because that's not interest, that's borrowed money. That leaves us with $186,640. Well, guess what, folks? That's the interest paid over the life of that loan. In other words, somebody who borrows $200,000 and is making a payment of $1,074 every month for 30 years is going to pay $186,640 in interest. Isn't that just a cute number? Isn't that nice to think about, that you're going to pay nearly as much interest as you're actually paying back in loan amount?
You.
Such a nice number. Talk to me. Are we okay? We lost? Are we, where are we here?
We're good.
Pretty good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I want you to do this one then. How much is the total interest paid over the life of a 20-year mortgage loan of $225,000 issued at 4.5% interest with monthly PI payments of $14, $24, $25? I want you to go through that process and come up with the interest paid over the life of that loan. I'll give you a couple minutes to do it. I always like you to practice one yourself. When you're done, you can take a look at mine and see what you think. This, by the way, is a math question on the test too. How do we all feel about $116,820?
Yes. Good.
Good?
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Very good. You should get comfortable with what the math we've done so far today, folks, probably represents half of the finance math on the test. So if you can handle what we've done so far today, you're halfway through acing the finance math on the test. That should be like a reassuring feeling, right? Don't twist yourself into pretzels and get all worked up about the math. You're going to be fine with that. I think you're going to probably be fine with the lunch break too. Y'all think about that?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, sounds good.